we'll be a bit informal. We do have some slides and prepared material that we want to share with you all, but I guess we always kind of prepare fairly intro level material, assuming that folks have not gotten exposed, that this is kind of the first, that this camp is kind of the first touch with actuarial work. And so, if any of it is mundane or routine or stuff that you already know, feel free to look bored or fall asleep, and we'll try to talk about stuff that's more interesting. Feel free to also, in the middle of our, discussion, feel free to stop us and ask us questions. I think we have probably maybe 30 or so minutes worth of like prepared discussion stuff, but we're here to answer your questions. The three of us, myself and Justice and Nick, are actuaries. We all work at AIG, for varying periods of time, and have been exposed to the exam process, certainly exam P. For me, it was longer ago than for Nick, who it was probably longer ago than for Justice as well. But, all of us have kind of been through the process. So with that said, let me pull up some slides when I find them. Sorry. Okay, are you all able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so again, just kind of intro. So the three presenters, we all work at AIG. My name is Brandon Wright. I'm a fellow of the Society of Actuaries. My role at AIG, I'm the Deputy Chief Finance Actuary for our life insurance business. And so what that means, so for AIG sells life insurance, property and casualty insurance, as well as retirement products. And so all of those kind of product types are grouped into business units. And so for the life insurance business unit, my role kind of has oversight of all of the various actuarial functions that relate to life insurance. And I guess Justice and Nick, do you guys want to introduce yourselves as well?
I can go ahead. My name is. Can you hear me? Okay.
I think somebody else has a microphone on and there's some echoing.
Yeah, that sounds better. My name is Justice Washington. I've been at AIG for about 4 years now. I'm an actuarial associate there. I'm currently working on the VA testing team, where we perform various tests on the actuarial model that we use to evaluate our variable annuity business. I am a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin. I studied mathematics with a special track in actuarial science. So this is a little bit of intro about me.
My name is Nick Franzese. I also went to UT Austin, did a math degree a year, I think, before Justice. I've been working at AIG for 5 years. I interned here and came back for the full-time position. I currently report up to Brandon, doing whatever he doesn't want to do, or he tells me I have to do, general structure. But the main project that I work on a specific sense is interest crediting. So I kind of help us put together how much interest we're going to credit on our variable or universal life insurance products where that rate can go up and down and kind of determine how much money goes into the policyholder's contract. But yeah, I'm a recent FSA. I think the last time I talked to this group, I was not an FSA, and now I am. That's a great sense of relief there. Feeling much better having that done. And it has me as associate actuary. I don't know what the next title is going to look like. We're still working out the mechanics, but Yeah, that's my ride.
Excellent. Thanks. And so those are quick intros. We're happy to answer more questions about our journey, to where we are right now afterwards, or, throughout. So I guess just real quick, I'm going to give some intro information about kind of the actuarial profession. And then I'll turn it over to Nick, I believe, to talk about some specifics of AIG's actuarial program, and as well as some study tips. And then Justice will finish it off. I might have that order wrong, with some additional study tips. We'll see where the slides take us. So the actuarial profession is governed really by two bodies. So I mentioned before AIG, so life insurance, a bit of health insurance, and annuity type products. Those types of products are governed by the Society of Actuaries. AIG also sells property and casualty insurance, so auto insurance, home insurance, business liability insurance, and those types of insurance are governed by the Casualty Actuarial Society. So the three of us on this phone, we all work in life insurance or annuities, and so we all are on the SOA exam track, or have finished the SOA exams, and are members of the Society of Actuaries. The two organizations are very similar, but obviously because we work on different types of business, some of the credentialing requirements are a bit different. And so on the left, you all may have seen this before, but this is the path to fellowship for the Society of Actuaries. And on the right is the path to fellowship for the Casualty Actuarial Society. Both tracks are, I believe, about 10-ish exams, and a bunch of modules and educational experiences along the way. Interestingly enough, the exam syllabi for the organizations tend to change like every couple of years. And so I guess maybe one tip as you're starting out your actuarial career path is just to really stay in touch with whichever track you decide to take, and stay in touch with the organizations and keep on top of the requirements, because they do tend to change from year to year, as there new developments in the industry, new developments in the way that we do our work, new technological developments. A lot of the requirements for exams change, and so it's really important to keep in touch, keep on top of what's on the exams and what the required exams are, so that you make sure that you're studying the correct material for the sitting that you plan to take. Any questions about the exam path while we're on this slide?
If I can just add, the VEEs, definitely keep on top of those. You can use college classes for some of those credits, and that being one that changes, if you can keep on top of which classes, that's important. That helped me. I came in with all those done. That was a relief. I just like to keep that one in particular is an important one to stay on top of when you're in school, when you have the chance to pivot into a class that can knock one of those out.
All right. If no questions, just moving on. So I talked about the Society of Actuaries and the Casualty Actuarial Society. So those are the organizations that govern the exam process. And then, just to share a bit more about organizations that are related to those societies that give the credentials, I would, just recommend that you also learn a bit about the four organizations that we've listed here on the page. The American Academy of Actuaries is actually the professional organization for actuaries. And so actuaries, both from the Casualty Actuarial Society and the Society of Actuaries, typically become members of the American Academy of Actuaries. And the role of the Academy of Actuaries is kind of like a professional licensing organization that you have in other professions like medicine or law. And so this organization is responsible for kind of discipline and setting the standards of practice and ethics for practicing actuaries. And so once you become a designated actuary, you also typically are automatically admitted into the Academy of Actuaries. You have to pay a fee and take a course as well. But that kind of gives you the ability to sign documents as an actuary and that kind of thing. Just make sure that you're practicing as an actuary according to the regulations set forth by the organization. The other thing that the Academy of Actuaries does is some advocacy, and the Academy actually partners with the Society of Actuaries and the Casualty Actuarial Society for kind of advocacy and kind of pushing legislative issues that have to do with insurance, through government and that kind of thing. So that's the Academy of Actuaries. Gamma Iota Sigma, I guess if you're in school, you've probably heard of this organization, but it's an insurance and risk management collegiate fraternity, again, with the purpose of promoting careers in risk management and insurance. So really helpful organization there. I believe U of H has a chapter of Gamma Iota Sigma. A lot of benefits like scholarships and things through Gamma Iota Sigma. The International Association of Black Actuaries and the Organization of Latino Actuaries are organizations that focus on increasing minority representation within the actuarial profession. And so, again, both great organizations that do a lot of work in the profession. I've been a member of the International Association of Black Actuaries for probably the whole of my career. But they do a lot of good work with, promoting diversity, I guess helping students land internships, professional development, and OLA is a similar organization focused on Latino actuaries. So any questions about any of those? All right, hearing none, I am going to hand it over to this Justice.
Yeah, I'll cover these slides.
All right.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk about some study tips for the actuarial exams. These are definitely helpful for the first 4 or 5 exams, which are called the prelim exams, which cover your probability, financial mathematics, etc. So the first tip that I always give when you start your study process is to go over the exam syllabus. If you go to the SOA or CAS website, on the landing page for whatever exam you're taking, there'll usually be a link for the syllabus. We've all seen the syllabus before. The exam syllabus just has the individual sections and contents of the exam and the relative weights of each section that you can expect to see on the exam. So going over the syllabus and understanding what material is going to be on the exam, whatever concepts and their relative weights is definitely important as you start your study process, as you go into mastering the material, as you go into doing practice questions, practice exams. Having that base understanding of the syllabus is definitely important. The second tip that I'm going to give is to go over some of those tricky math concepts. You'll definitely will see different tips and tricks that will help you solve the questions more quickly. With the exams being timed, it's definitely necessary that you're able to actually implement or perform the math calculation in a quickly, very quickly. Excuse me. So the math concepts that are typically on the prelim exams will be like your derivatives, your integrals, certain concepts like that. The next tip that I'll give is to create an agenda for your or study schedule in general. Typically, when you create this agenda, you would typically start by going over the exam syllabus, going over the material, learning the material if you don't know the material, doing some practice questions as well as, and to where you can get to a point to where you've mastered the material. And then after mastering the material, I would recommend allocating maybe half of your study schedule or 60 to 90 days to complete practice questions and practice exams. That way, when you go into the exam on your exam day, that you feel comfortable with the questions and the material and your ability to complete the exam within the time limits. For resources, so as I mentioned, the SOA, they will have a landing page for whatever exam you're taking. And on that page, there'll be various resources such as sample questions. SOA will also publish the past exams and solutions. So it's definitely helpful to gather all your resources together so that you have as much help as possible that can get you exam ready. For me, the practice questions and the sample questions, they tend to be a little bit easier than what the actual exam would be. So when I start my study process, I usually start with the sample questions to kind of give me an idea of where I'm at with the material, how well I can answer the sample questions, and then I'll go into really mastering the material. After mastering the material, go into the practice exams, and if you use the past exams that the SOA publishes, that can really give you a better idea of how prepared you are. Because if you can ace a past exam, then you have a pretty good chance of acing the actual exam. And then my last tip is to never underestimate the amount of time that it takes for your study process. One thing about these actuarial exams is that the level of difficulty, it can be surprising on your first attempt. The exams are, I would say, not like your typical college midterm final exams. They can be a little bit more difficult. Having that time pressure is also a thing that you have to make sure that you're prepared for. On my first few attempts of the exams, the time really kind of affected me a lot. So, you don't want to underestimate the amount of time that it's going to take for you to actually write a full exam. So just keep that in mind as you are studying for your exams.
Yeah, so just I can't emphasize that enough, particularly because a lot of you are first-time exam takers, hence why I enlarged the font and put it in red. Justice is a pretty laid-back guy, so he didn't say it with a lot of emphasis, but honestly, like most people, when they take their first actuarial exam, take the attitude that, I'm smart, I did well in my math classes, it's another exam and I can just study for it or cram for it and pass. And a lot of people have a very rude awakening when they take their first exam. I was one of those people. I failed my first exam attempt miserably. So, just, I don't know how to emphasize it more, but really just kind of heed what Justice has mentioned about the amount of time and resources that you put into your preparation. and just really plan to spend a lot of time doing this. It can be like almost like a part-time job studying for these exams. So.
Yeah, and just to give I guess a better idea of what it takes. So for exam P, I also failed on my first attempt. I think a lot of actuaries can say that. But on my second attempt, I really refined my study process. I took more time. So I think, on my second attempt, I maybe studied for maybe 4 to 6 months at the time. And for me, I had to use all that time to study just to make sure that, I felt comfortable, especially after taking the exam once and seeing the material, seeing how difficult it was for me. I had to, I guess, refine my study process, refine my habits. I was in college at the time, so I had to balance, doing my coursework, taking exams, taking finals with, after my coursework, studying for my actuarial exam. So you definitely have to adjust your free time, adjust your schedule a bit to do what it takes. Studying for actuarial exams definitely can take a lot of your time, but it's definitely worth it. If you spend the time to really master the material, get comfortable, and then you go into the exam, you walk out and you pass it, it's a really great feeling. Okay, we can go to the next.
I have a question, Justice.
Yes.
What would you say would be the appropriate generalized time, if any, for someone to study for the P exam if they've never taken it before? It will be their first time. I know you mentioned 4 to 6 months for you, and that was your second time. And the reason why I ask is because for us, we will refund our students their P exam fee if they take it within 3 months. So now I'm concerned that maybe that's too fast. Maybe we should extend it a bit.
So do you guys, well, I'm assuming you guys teach the probability material as a course?
We do, but a lot of our participants of the camp are, as we see, we have at least 3 that are that are non-U of H students, or they're not U of H students at all. So all the instruction they'll get from us via the camp is like during the camp. That's all. But
Gotcha.
our refund fee is typically for U of H students. So still, the direct instruction they get from us is during the camp. And if they've taken probability, then that's their additional instruction. So that's why I'm concerned a bit now. Everyone that attends the camp should have taken 3338. So yes, that's what, a semester of instruction, but it's not, the instruction is basically on probability. It's not about studying for the P exam. So that's something that we probably will have to discuss. But I kind of wanted to get an idea if you think that maybe 3 months is not long enough.
Well, I would say, having the base understanding of probability through a course is definitely a good start. And for those students or for those people who have that knowledge, it may take a shorter amount of time
Okay.
To really study.
Okay.
I think 3 to 4 months is pretty decent.
Okay.
And of course, it depends, by the person. I took longer because I'm not that great of a test taker, so I knew I needed that extra time.
Okay.
But for my other colleagues at the time, and for other people I know, 3 to 4 months seems to be around the average time for study. And I think within those 3 to 4 months, it's important that you kind of break up. I typically break up my study time in half. So for the first half, I'm really going over the material. And then for that second half, I'm purely focusing on the test taking aspect of the exam.
Okay.
But I think 3 to 4 months for somebody who has that base knowledge of probability
Mhm.
is a good amount of time.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like definitely something worth monitoring and perhaps asking, some of the students that, that go through the camp with kind of the characteristics of the folks that go through the camp to understand, whether they felt like they had enough time. It's tough because you never feel like you have enough time to study
Yeah.
for one of these things, but probably worth looking into.
I was gonna say just some before I was interrupted by a truck driving by 80 on my 20-mile-an-hour road. Some quick back of the envelope on this 100 study hours per exam hour, 3-hour exam. So that's recommended 300 study hours. Should be less for a student that's coming out of a class. But if it's 3 months after class completion, you take your 3 months, 90 days, 300 hours. That's expecting like what, 3 hours a day. If that's like within the attainable range for what you're expecting like students to be able to add on top of stuff, then I guess that's okay for like the 3-month extension. Maybe a little bit more, especially for a first one. He is often people's first, but that's just my thoughts on the time. And Justice asked a good point too. I think we both took the same P class at UT, where a lot of the probability courses don't teach toward the actuarial exam. We're in there with probability folks that take every math degree, but then a lot of our other actuarial courses are like on the nose for exams almost. So that's why kind of the P class as a half actuarial, half non-actuarial is an important distinction. But yeah, I mean, that's aiming at 3 hours a day on top of regular school stuff. That might be maybe a little aggressive for the reimbursement. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you. I think it might be a little too tight, but
Okay. That's what I'm thinking because, like I said, we offer the camp during the winter and during the summer. And so the way we have it set up is if after they complete the camp, they have 3 months within that time as a U of H student to take the exam. And if they pass, then we refund their fee. But like I said, now that's a good point that you mentioned because the prerequisite for the camp is that they have taken probability. They have taken a probability course. Now, whenever that is, we basically have it for that current year. So for everyone that's in the camp now, they would have had to receive credit for probability summer 2020, fall 2020, or this spring 2021. So for the spring 2021 students, it might be, as you said, pretty advantageous and easy for them to take it within the 3-month period because they've just come out of the probability course and boom, they're in the P exam camp. But for those students that have taken probability as of summer 2020 or fall 2020, yeah, we may have to rethink about that. We may have to think about that, extend it a bit. Yeah. I'm glad y'all brought that up because I didn't even think. I thought that 3 months would be fine, but now that if we're accepting students that have probability credit from almost a year ago, if they haven't retouched that, that curriculum except during that camp, then that may not be enough time.
and also the P is in every 2 months type exam, so it might end up where they only have 2 months before that too.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. They're
Cancellations of sittings because of like COVID and trying to get into a prometric, which is its own animal. I don't want to scare anybody with, but that's another fun one when you find out your test might not be happening maybe that day. I've heard horror stories.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, that's nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can so starting on this slide, I can kind of piggyback off of what Nick said with the study hours. So on this third bullet point, there's a general rule that for every hour of an exam, you should study 100 hours. So for exam P, it's a 3-hour exam, 30 questions. So typically you should try to log around 300 plus hours for that exam. So depending on how long it would take you to, to actually reach 100 study hours can, kind of gauge how long it would take, for your study schedule as a whole. But if you can do, 3 hours a day, two hours a day, 2 to 4 hours a day, I guess. 3 months should be doable. So also just going off that bullet point, so for another resource that is very popular is Coaching Actuaries. So Coaching Actuaries is an online software that has, it's basically like a course where you have one part that will actually teach you the contents of whatever exam you're taking. For exam P, I use Coaching Actuaries. And then there's typically a coach who has, so there's a actual textbook type manual that has the information, the contents, the material, as well as practice questions. And then there's video lessons that you can take on Coaching Actuaries as well. So if you're a visual learner, that's definitely helpful for your study. And then also on Coaching Actuaries, they have sample exams where which tracks your progress. So on Coaching Actuaries, they kind of give different levels for their practice exams, 1 to 10. So it'll typically start off at a lower level. Depending on how well you do, you can increase your earn level. So another kind of general rule is that if you are utilizing Coaching Actuaries and you're taking the practice exams and you reach an earn level of 7, then you have about a 90% chance of passing your exam. So typically when I study using Coaching Actuaries, I try to get around to a level 6 or level 7, level 8. So depending on how quick you can do that and get comfortable with practicing, passing an exam at maybe like an earn level of 7 can also kind of go into how long it would take you to pass an exam. Yeah, so just some other tips on this slide about timing. On the previous slide, I talked about timing a lot. So for exam P, it's 3 hours, 30 minutes. I'm sorry, 30 questions. So on average, you should be spending about 6 minutes per question. Some questions will be 30 seconds, or you can answer very quickly. Some questions will take you up to 10 minutes. But on average, you should be spending about 6 minutes per question to fulfill the time slot that you're given. And then working up the stamina. This is also kind of a test taking tip rather than a material tip. When you are taking this exam, I can't stress enough that the timing is really important. So when you are reading a question, you need to be able to, as you're reading, pulling out the relevant information that you need to solve the question. And by the time you're done reading the question, you already know how you're going to solve it, the method that you're going to use to solve the question, what keystrokes you're going to do on your calculator. It's very important that you're not wasting time trying to think, okay, well, man, I remember this concept, but I don't really know what to do. So having that stamina and that mastery of the material to where you can read a question, get the inputs that you need, go to your calculator, and solve the question is really important. And also another tip that you can do is to quiz yourself over topics that you find more difficult. This is a tip that I use with Coaching Actuaries. Coaching Actuaries, they also have customizable quizzes and exams that you can take. And you can select certain topics out of the syllabus that you want to quiz yourself over. You can also select the number of questions that you would like to quiz yourself over as well. So this is helpful when you've mastered a particular topic, but you need a little bit help on another topic. So you can, do a 5-question or a 10-question quiz, spend 30 minutes to an hour on that quiz. And then when you're done with the quiz, you can go over those questions, see what you did right, see what you did wrong, and really focus on the weaknesses that you have at that time of your study process. So it's definitely good to kind of hit, certain topics a little bit more harder than other topics. It's also important to keep in mind, again, the relative weight of that particular topic to the overall exam. For example, if a certain topic only covers 5% of the exam, you shouldn't be spending 50% of your time studying that topic. You should, really think about, okay, what questions are more likely to show up on the exam? What's most important for me to master, so you can, you know, focus on those topics as you study. And then the last bullet point on here, which is to do a little bit every day. I know, sometimes, we're all humans, and, if we worked every day, all day, then we probably wouldn't be able to function correctly. So, what this really means is to make sure that you are looking at the material, touching the material at least once a day. If you're not taking a practice exam or a practice quiz, make sure you are reviewing formulas or going over your notes. Keep it in your mind that, okay, I'm taking this exam, I'm studying, and there's things that I need to master, that there's things that I need to work on. Even if you're going to take a break for the day, make sure that you are reviewing something, so where you don't lose sight of of passing the exam. So yeah, those are all the tips that I have. I think I'll pass it on to Nick to talk about AIG.
Yeah, real quick before we did go, I wanted to just bouncing off the last topic of the everyday and back into the exams. A key word for me with these is momentum. You have to maintain the momentum with your studying, keep studying a little bit every day, make some progress. You have to blast through those bad days when you fail a practice exam badly and you question your career and your life choices. That happens. It happens a surprising amount of times, and you have to be able to endure those days where things don't look like they're going right and keep that momentum going on to study the next day, study that topic again, go to the next test. And then in the exam, momentum. If you look at a question and you don't immediately have like an instinct as to where you want to go with it, skip it, go to the next one. Do one that you know how to do, build up your confidence, build up your speed, get through the easy questions so you have all the time in the world for the questions you're not as sure about, and come back. It's your 3 hours. You can loop through this thing. I loop through my test 4 or 5 times before I'm confident that I've answered everything, and then I'm doing checking myself afterwards and going over key problems. So just keep the wheel spinning, even if it's slow. Even if it doesn't look like it's really moving, keep the wheel spinning. Okay, I'm ready to move on down to talk about actuarial or AIG specifically. Of course, these things kind of apply to all companies, but I'm going to speak in an actuary and an AIG perspective. First, I want to talk about our internship program. I'm just going to abbreviate what we've got here. We put you to work, 10 weeks of working. You got 10 weeks of doing something productive within your team, helping other teams, so on and so forth. You might have one big project for 10 weeks. You might have a bunch of little projects, 1, 2, 3 weeks at a time. You might be a small cog in a massive wheel of a project, and the fruition of your work will be relatively minor compared to the whole thing. You build part of a model. You're there for a component. So there's a lot of different work that we do, but it's real. We bring in interns to just do assignments, and it's a great way to learn and to meet people while you're here. Take advantage of that. I did want to bring up, and we got our minimum requirements on there. We expect students to come in with an exam by around March, which is kind of that recruiting cutoff close window. Be working on their degree and graduating within the following year. We tend not to, we try to get whoever we can, but if it's a sophomore and we have to wait 2 years to hire them full time, of course that can be a difficult element. Minimum GPA 3.2. That's kind of your first clue if the student is active in their career and their education and making engagement, would be good to hire, all that. Then the locations, we do have the locations listed for the last 2 years. I don't know if you guys noticed there's a pandemic, and we've had people working remotely, and it's worked out really well. We pivoted pretty well into that from a full-time, an intern, and a new hire perspective. I'm actually pretty happy with how that's all gone. So I can't promise locations or anything like that, but we make that part work. I don't think anyone's really had any complaints about that. The application, you got your link down there. Yeah, no, that's pretty much everything for the internship. It's just work, 10 weeks of work.
Yeah, I'll just add. So Nick, I think these dates that are on this slide probably obviously are for interns for this summer, which our intern class for summer 2021 is already full. But you know, I guess for applying for an internship at AIG for summer of 2022, we'd expect you to have one exam by March of 2022, and expecting a degree by the end of 2024, so that you would be able to start, you know, as a full-time analyst on that date. So just a heads up if anybody was writing down those dates.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then once you're full-time, we're talking a little bit about the development program. Again, lots of companies have something like this, but ours is really pretty robust and kind of covers everything. So what is it? It's a program in which this is the group that you'll apply to get your study materials and your exam fees covered. They're a group that will help have the company pay for your materials, pay for your exams, and then track your progress, how you're doing. They're the ones that push through the raises when you pass an exam. I like them a lot for that reason. We have a lot of working, groups that they help get the students studying together. There's organizations that help students get together for MFE or IFM, STAM, LTAM. There's always a group going on because there's always people studying. AIG student body, we call them students, ones that are still taking exams. What is it, like close to 100 or something? There's a lot. There's a lot of people, and everyone's taking an exam that you probably are at one point or another. But the program, you have to stay in it. Again, comes back to the momentum. You have to be regularly passing. We don't expect first-time passing with 2 months of studying, of course not. But we expect a regular and progressive rhythm of studying and passing your exams to be able to get this privilege of having your materials and your fees covered. We want you to pass. Everyone in the program wants you to pass. Everyone who runs it wants you to pass. Your managers want you to pass. And it's an important element. So it's something that we cover kind of top to bottom for our students. We give them the time to study at work. Not all of it. You can't pass an exam on just work hours. You got to put in your own time. I have no choice but to tell you that one. But it's more than I think a lot of people can give a lot of companies can give their studying actuaries. So it's a gift. It really is.
Sorry, my mouse is skippy today. All right.
Yeah. And then another big benefit of our program is rotations. Basically every 2-3 years, depending on staff and team size and whatnot, we rotate students. You get to change jobs. And it sounds scary, but it's a good thing that you get to see all these different experiences, meet all these different people, work on these different teams, and kind of build out your resume. We're very good about trying to spread students into different departments over their career so they can maximize their broad view and potential, and give them a chance to, I like this role, I like that role. I could come back here when I'm done with my exams and, manage that team or go full time in that role when you're done rotating. If you don't like a role, you can leave. They won't make you stay forever. So it's a good opportunity to really give you a variety of products, a variety of roles, a variety of different teams that you get to work with. I know I've been through valuation roles, very typical, very raw actuarial thing to do, calculate a reserve, right? And then I did some work on our controls and governance team, which is completely like left field for most actuarial careers, where you're working with people on their controls and their documentation and gathering up all these different resources and keeping things organized. It's very different. There's not a lot of math in that role compared to most of the other roles. So it was an interesting opportunity. And now I get to work on this interest credited stuff. I've never gotten to really work with life products before this, and I've had a crash course. I've learned a lot, made a few mistakes. Nobody fired me. It's worked out pretty well, I think. It's a company and a role and a field that encourages you to learn and get better. And I really appreciate that about actuarial and especially about AIG. I've always felt comfortable trying to do things and learn things while I'm here. Okay, and then I guess I can talk more about this again. Your steps that you want to work toward easing into our internship applications and employment. Get involved with the organizations. Reach out to these organizations so you could start meeting people, connecting with people. We got Aba and Ola on there. There's an SOA Candidate Connect. It's kind of like the big SOA version of making actuarial friends. Go to your conventions and job fairs. I don't know how COVID has impacted like job fair stuff exactly for U of H and whatnot, but there's virtual versions of these same things that we've been to. It's, you just got to adapt to the times, but meet people, throw your resume at anybody that'll read it. And, keep an eye on these student programs at these companies that you apply to as well. We're big on AIGs, of course, and it is pretty much the best one that I've seen. I mean that genuinely when I was doing my research, but everyone's got one. It's always not as good as AIG. But that's an important factor when you determine a company you're going to go to, especially for the formative years of your career. Technical skills, get good at Excel. No one's expecting you to be a master, but we all use Excel. It's not going away. People will talk about it. It won't. Use Excel. Learn it. Microsoft Access, that hurts to learn, but learn that one too. It can be pretty useful. Any of those kind of skills that you can learn, technical skills, to be ready to jump into a working world, just makes you look better and land more easily. Databases are Python and SQL. It's not my forte, but I got through it. You can too. And then get that first exam done. Like, we're hardline about having a first exam. Lots of companies are. It's getting more and more competitive, especially as there's more preliminary exams. The expectation of having exams kind of goes up with that, right? Have one for sure. Maybe go for two. Shoot for three if you can. I came out with two, and I had to do a lot of studying at work. It wasn't as easy as when it was back in school. And then my first exam during work was the second prelim. It was like a IFM or MFE when I took it. So it was tougher. It was like a jump up from P and FM, and I would have rather had a practice run in college before I tried to do it here. But yeah, those are kind of the main topics there. Get involved, get active, get your name out there, and get yourself as prepared as you can for the working world.
All right.
I just want to add something here. So for somebody who didn't have the internship experience, something that really helped me out in landing my entry-level position was having some type of actuarial experience. So for me, I participated in a case study, actuarial case study competition. And through that case study, I was put in a real actuarial example. I played the role of an actuary at an insurance company, and so forth and so on. It was a case study role playing type of thing. So it's like, even though I didn't have the internship experience, during my interview and while I was networking, with different employers, I was able to talk about that case study and how it was meaningful for me and the things that I've learned, through that experience. So I would definitely encourage students who are pursuing a career in actuarial science to, get as much exposure and as much experience that you can, especially as you are, trying to land that first job. Every little bit can help. As long as you are able to, to speak about your experiences and showcase how, those experiences will be helpful to you and beneficial on your job. It can be beneficial, for you, as you're looking for that first job, or even for an internship. Yeah, I just wanted to add that part.
Excellent. All right, so that concludes our prepared remarks. So certainly, I'm going to take my screen share down. We can go back to the slides if we need to, but I'm interested in what questions do you all have about what we shared, or any other questions that have been burning that we didn't answer during our talk, while you have 3 practicing actuaries in front of you.
So at the beginning, you went over the SOA and the CAS, and I didn't notice, were the preliminary exams on both of those the same? So after you get through those, how do you typically decide which route you want to go, whether it's property and casualty or life and health insurance?
Yeah, good question. Let me bring that back up if my mouse will cooperate. Okay. So yeah, I think so I'll answer the question from what I know. When I took the preliminary exams, it was several years ago, and the syllabus has changed. Looking at this list, I think there are, well, actually, you know what, Nick or Justice, do you guys want to answer that? You're probably closer to it than I am. Are all of the exams different between SOA and CAS now? They used to be combined.
I believe now the first 3 exams are the same. So P,
Okay.
FM, and IFM.
P is 1, maybe. FM is 2, or flip. Maybe 3F is IFM. They might have even split that. I'm not sure. There used to be more overlap, and then these products and families of actuary are different, and so things kind of split earlier and earlier. And leading into that, to answer your question, I became the actuary of the first job I got. I don't want you guys to feel like you have to pick your career before you graduate. It just comes as you go. When AIG took me as an intern, I said, maybe I'll stick to that. And then they offered me the full-time position. I said, that seems like a good idea. And so I went toward life actuarial. I mean, I'd like to tell you that there was some dream story if I wanted to solve a life insurance problem. I think when I was a kid, I wanted to do health because I had, my family, my grandmother had like health stuff. And I was like, I want to fix this. Then I was like, I need a job. I mean, I can't, I'm not gonna be able to have 3, 4, 5 exams and then choose a career later. I have to roll with the punches, right? And that's kind of what dictated mine. I think, I don't know how common that is. It's probably more common than people will ever tell you, but I like to tell people the truth about that one. It's, you don't have to know. And the earlier that they start splitting these exams, you can't know. There's no way. And with the job opportunities, you can't be picky. So.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. The SOA chose me. I didn't choose SOA. I remember I also, when I started applying to jobs, I had P and FM passed as well. So I could, at that point, I could go either way. So I was applying to life insurance companies as well as property and casualty companies as well. So literally AIG, they called me back before the other companies called me back. So I would say, if you definitely have a particular interest in one or the other, then you can stick to one side or the other if you want. But I would definitely say be open about your experiences and your opportunities that you would like to take. But yeah, typically if you have 2 to 3 exams pass, you can still decide what you want to do. And even if you pass, say you pass LTAM on the SOA side, and you decide, okay, life is not what I want to do, and you want to switch to casualty, that I would say that that's probably fine too. But I would try to avoid going all the way to getting your ASA, passing all these life and health insurance exams, deciding that you want to switch to the CAS.
Yeah. Echo the same responses that Nick and Justice gave. The overwhelming majority of actuaries have chosen their path based on where they, got their first or one of their earlier jobs, not because they just had a passion for life or health insurance or versus property and casualty or something like that. It happens, and if that's you, then certainly go take that path and only apply to those types of companies. But you really increase your chances of landing an internship or job by kind of keeping your options open. And then I always give this one piece of advice. I've heard this question a lot, and the one piece of advice that I do give people it's a piece of advice that I wish I had when I was starting out my career. One thing to consider is that actuaries typically work in the home offices of the insurance companies, or, you know, if you're in insurance, they work in a home office. And so a lot of times you can look at, for example, AIG, where most of our actuaries are located. Now that's changing a lot because of, you know, current ways of working. There's a lot more remote work. But as far like life and health insurance companies typically tend to be concentrated in the Northeast of the U.S. or the Midwest of the U.S. Property and casualty companies can be spread out a bit more. I guess health insurance companies tend to be like in every state because insurance is regulated at state level, and you'll see like Blue Cross Blue Shield of Georgia, for example. And so you may want to think about if there's a particular geography that you're interested in, you might want to think about pursuing the path, you know, where you have the most opportunities in that geography. And so if, for example, you wanted to stay in Houston, I can tell you AIG on the life and health side is the largest employer of actuaries here. There really are not many other options here. And so, you know, you would more than likely want to go the life and health track. There probably are a handful of property casualty jobs here, but not that many. So maybe take that into consideration. But again, most folks, I ended up here in Houston because AIG was the first place, or I guess the second place that I got an internship, and the first place that offered me a full-time job. I'm not from here, but you know, I've stayed here just because I work for AIG. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yes.
All right. What else? What other questions?
Go ahead, Christy.
For those of us who are out of school and maybe have jobs or kids now, what's a good way of getting experience without committing 10 weeks of like taking off of work to do an internship? You know what I mean?
So I'll say, I guess, just out of curiosity, what field do you work in now?
I'm an admin for a real estate development company.
Okay. So I guess, so we do get a lot of career changes that apply for roles at AIG. I think to the extent that you can get experience in any type of financial role where you're you know, dealing with numbers and can demonstrate that you've dealt with numbers, or, you know, I guess others get, you know, if you've gotten exposure to investments or, you know, I think there are ways that you can gain experience in almost any field and make it relevant to the type of work that you're going to be doing. You know, we really do get a range of people with different backgrounds, you know, that end up being career changes. I'd say the most important thing is, I mean, pass the exams. If you can pass the exams and you demonstrate that you have worked as a professional in any capacity and can function in a work environment, we certainly would not turn someone away that has demonstrated that they can pass actuarial exams and has been employed wherever. You know, I don't think you necessarily, the internship is not a requirement for sure. I think there's certainly people that are career changers that have gotten into actuarial work and work with us at AIG.
Hi, good evening. To piggyback off of Christy, I'm one of those career changers who haven't been in school for a while. And in looking to those experiences to be exposed to actuary, would underwriting be a good way to be exposed to that? And can you talk a little more about what I guess that would entail for that position?
No, absolutely. I think, you know, in underwriting, you get exposure to, you know, selecting risks, right? And selecting and choosing risk. And that's, you know, part of, I mean, it's very closely related to actuarial work. And so, you know, if it's life insurance underwriting, for example, like I work very closely with our underwriters at AIG. I'm on calls with them because they are involved in kind of our risk selection and determining our prices for life insurance, for example. And so someone with a background in underwriting certainly would be that has passed actuarial exams would be a great candidate because you have kind of some different experience than your typical actuarial student who comes out of college with, an actuarial degree or something like that. So anything finance related, if you can land something at an insurance company, that's great. You start to understand the inner workings of insurance. Just in the sessions that I've been in, and I think, Nick, you've probably been in some of them too, where we get candidates that are career changers, the diversity of experience is really valued and it's not kind of looked down on. So, if you come in with a background that's different, and can articulate why, that would be helpful, to a company, I think, it's certainly a viable way to go. Other questions? Dr. West, you haven't asked the question yet. I'm surprised.
You're muted, James.
Sorry, physical mute
Okay.
button. Yeah, I went kind of aggressive last time, so I was trying to give people some room.
Oh my goodness.
You take professors too, if you want. You got an open spot. I always do that to the host. Just to
That's
harass
okay.
them into
Can I get that in
replying.
writing?
You can do that.
No, absolutely not.
Well, I think Ty's recording this, so that'll work.
Oh no, what have I done? I'm going off the grid. Then a good ride, Brandon. I'll see you guys later.
Yes. Would you count having taught statistics? Does that count as experience?
Absolutely. No. So honestly, on our team, Nick, I'm not sure if you do it, but Brett, someone who's on our team, started out teaching, I think, math. So, and I can probably 10 or 15 people at AIG that are actuaries now that started out as math teachers or professors or something like that. So
yeah, we get a lot of physics folks that switch over. Lots of math folks that want to do math a different way. They definitely switch over. Absolutely, no, it's a common fun thing.
So then can I ask for those who switch, because that's what I currently do. I'm a high school math teacher. And did they go into that? Because I was curious into whatever exposure they had, because being a teacher, you're teaching the same thing over. You're not doing any really higher level math or doing those things. So I was curious for those who do teach and then go into actuary, did they get exposure to that, or did they use their teaching to land a job?
Well, I think at an entry level, they just came in with, took a couple of exams, and I've mentored a couple of people that are working in actuarial roles right now that were teachers and just went straight into took exams while they were teaching and went into actuarial science. The thing about it is, as a teacher, so actuaries, one of the things that we do internally within the companies that we work at is try to explain technical concepts to our managers. And so the ability to communicate mathematical and very technical concepts in a way that people understand them is a skill that teachers just kind of, automatically are able to do. And so they make really good actuaries. And so I can, like I said, the people that I can think of that I know have been teachers are actually really great communicators, and they're well respected because they're able to take really difficult technical concepts and explain them in a way that people around them and our management and other employees at AIG can understand. So I think you're well positioned to make the move if that's what you want to do.
Okay, I will ask a question, actually. So you mentioned that Excel was assumed, basically, right? So what, for the students here, what kind of uses with Excel should they be thinking? I mean, do they need experience actually coding using VBA or writing macros, or is more just familiarity with the kind of structure of functions and navigating, cleaning data, those kind of areas? So
Yeah, no, you don't have to come in. I didn't know any VBA before my internship, and now I work with it a lot, mostly for my own convenience half the time too. I started VBAing things because I don't want to do manual things repeatedly in Excel. You don't have to come in with a lot. The more you have, the faster you hit the ground running, right? It'll make you feel better as you're trying to do some of these crazy things that you're presented with Excel. But now you don't have to know a whole lot. You should. It's a good thing to learn. It'll help you in the long run. You'll get a lot more done, but don't feel obligated to go out and take classes or anything like that. You'll learn a lot of it here, and just by exposure to the different tools that we all use. Everyone's got their own version of how they do things in spreadsheets and how they code up their VBA and whatnot. It's only to help you be more comfortable, but you don't have to be an expert. I'd like if you could open it, and do a couple of basic functions, but get familiar with some of the things like lookups and pivot tables so you can do complex things. Be able to visualize how you solve a problem using Excel is important, but you don't have to come in good at it particularly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just knowing the basics of Excel is typically enough. A lot of the skills that you will need on the job, you will pick up and you'll learn as you go. And even for a lot of the Excel-based programs and tools that we use, will usually come with a list of very well documentation and instructions. So even if you're not as comfortable with Excel, you'll have some kind of guide to help you with that. And that kind of speaks for all the other programs and software that we mentioned in the presentation, like SQL, Access, RStudio, VBA. Just knowing the basics and knowing what it is typically enough. But yeah, like Nick mentioned, having that skill set will make you feel more comfortable as you progress in your, that entry level position.
So speaking of RStudio, you mentioned so I know that one of the slides said that R would be useful for exams. Is RStudio actually, on the computers that you would use there? Because I think most students do use R with RStudio, in my experience. Or should they be well versed with using R on its own without the hand holding of RStudio?
So I believe R in RStudio is used on exam PA, which is one of the later exams for the ASA track. So yeah, having an understanding or knowing how to use R specifically for that exam, that's where that comes into play. I personally haven't used R or RStudio in my work experience, but I know people who have. But definitely, it's more of an extra skill set that you can pick up that will make you more adaptable as you take on different roles and take on different tasks and assignments. I think mostly in my role, my current role, of course, we use Excel. I use SQL, which, so Nick mentioned that we have a rotation program. So after spending 2 years at the company, I rotated into a new position that I relied heavily on SQL. So it was my first time using SQL, at that point, and I was able to pick it up very quickly. I used a bunch of online resources that helped me get comfortable with using, that software in particular. But having if I would have had that experience or that knowledge coming into the role, I definitely would have, been able to hit the ground moving a little bit more faster in that role. So that's really where the benefit comes. So it's not necessarily if you don't have that experience, you don't have that knowledge, then you're not going to be a good actuary. You're not going to be a good employee. It's just really to help you or make you feel more comfortable in doing your job.
All right. Any other questions? I guess if there are none, we can. I don't know if you all have content. Are you all going to continue until 7, or is that
I
it
have
for
stuff prepared for the rest of the session.
Okay,
I was gonna ask, could we make the slides available? Could you email those to me and
absolutely.
I can put them in the OneDrive for the students?
Will do. Yep. I will send over the slides, and I guess feel free to reach out. Anybody that's on the call, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or I think all of the facilitators have our contact information, and if you think of questions later, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. But thanks for the time today. Thanks for listening to us babble on about this career that we enjoy so much.
Well, Ty stepped away, so I will be telling you guys, thank you so much for coming. And just like every time we've seen you guys, you're just an awesome resource for our students. And it's really wonderful that you guys take the time to do this. So we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Do I need to make someone else the host? I think Ty made me the host.
Yeah, Brendan, if you could make me the host, I'll go ahead and take over.
Okay. Yeah, will do.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you all. Take care.
All right, see ya. Okay. So,
Okay, I'll leave you guys to it. Bye.
all right, see ya. For those of you that are still here, let me see how many of us are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, cool. So a couple things. If you look in the, where's the OneDrive folder? Here it goes. So the syllabus that they mentioned for, you should take a look at the syllabus, obviously, if you're studying for anything, right? I guess let me stop recording this first. How do I do that? Stop recording.